Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rock and Roll channel. I thought I'd do a live stream to discuss the weekend that was in Philadelphia for Wrestlemania. If there's Wi-Fi issues, I spoke to the company today. They are aware that there were some issues. They try to fix it over the phone, but most likely they're gonna have to send out somebody. But I still wanted to get this live stream in regardless. So we're gonna power through this. And yeah, I want to talk about the weekend that was. So it started for me Thursday morning. I got up around 4:30 in the morning, get to the airport, Fort Lauderdale Airport. I find out my flight to Newark, New Jersey is delayed an hour and a half, but I had already gotten there like an hour and a half, 2 hours early. So nothing I could do. And I was kind of lucky that we still left at 8:30 in the morning. Actually, we left closer to 9, but give or take. We were lucky because obviously Newark is, a rock throw away from New York City. Two flights were canceled to New York. So I was real lucky to get on our plane and leave. So we were very lucky there. And I just hung out, relaxed, listened to some Florida State podcasts so I can catch up on what's going on. I still need to review more about what happened at the scrimmage over the weekend. I heard Norvell was really happy about it, so that's good. We're not going to talk about it. So I just, I was doing that in the meantime. So I'm waiting to board the plane, and the man who revolutionized the linebacker position in football, Lawrence Taylor, happens to walk right by me. Turns out he was on my flight. If you don't know that, besides the fact he was a football player, he was actually in the main event of WrestleMania 11. So I wasn't going to film this, of course, but I'm walking in my seat and he was like, I think 6 or 7 rows in front of me, not that far. So I see him and I said, "Are you going to WrestleMania this weekend?" I know he's flying to Newark, but like me, Philly, I flew to Newark and it's not that far from Philly. Anyway, he goes, "Huh?" And I said, "WrestleMania." He looks at me and goes, "Oh, hell no." So that's how the trip started. And I was cracking up. So the flight finally left around 9 ish. Get to Newark. I couldn't make the train that I wanted to take to Philly. Had to call an audible. I was able to, on the plane, get a refund for that plane ticket, which was nice. I mean, excuse me, for that train ticket, which was nice. So I get there, I take the New Jersey Transit, which the nice thing about Newark Airport is the train station is there. I didn't have to take an Uber to anywhere. I just had to take a quick shuttle to an air train, and the air train took you to the train part. It was not bad. It sounds like a lot, but it really wasn't that much. So I get there, I get my train ticket. We get to Trenton, New Jersey, which is about 20 minutes outside of Philly, give or take. And you had to get off at Trenton, and I had to catch a connecting train to Philly. I see the train is about 40 minutes, a 30-minute wait. I didn't really feel like waiting in Trenton, but I was going to. And then I look at the Uber fees compared to the two, and I realized where I was going to my friend's house wasn't that much of a difference from the Philly train station versus the Trenton, and it would save me a lot of time. So I called an audible, called something on the fly, jumped in an Uber, and got to my friend's house, and the drive was fine. I was lucky. The Uber driver picked me up literally in about 1 minute. Anyway, I get to my friend's house. Ray, my friend Ray, who I told you about, was waiting there for me. Colin was not there at the time, but we knew that. So Ray's waiting there. Ray got the house set up. Ray had everything ready. Of course, Colin did too. But Ray had everything ready as far as the fridge and you name it. So we hang out there for about an hour or two. We had about one or two, adult beverages. And then we get ready and we go to Xfinity Live. Xfinity Live is that cool restaurant and bar area, literally right next to all the stadiums in that parking lot in Philadelphia, which was great. Because at Xfinity Live, at a place there called Victory Beer Hall, busted open. That's the podcast and Sirius XM radio show that I love was having a show there. So we wanted to go to that. Sorry about that. So we wanted to go to that. So we get there. Not that many people there. More started to fill in. I got to talk to Dave LaGreca before the show. He even filmed a segment for my vlog, which I just released the day one episode of today, which was really cool. And so Ray and I sit down, and then Bully Ray shows up, Mark Henry shows up, Tommy Dreamer. I thought it was going to be a WrestleMania Memories thing, but it ended up changing, and it was one of their masterclass segment. And it was even cooler than what the WrestleMania Memories segment would have been, because they talked about Philadelphia wrestling and how Philadelphia is just different as a wrestling town than pretty much any other wrestling city. My friend Ray always tells me about it, and I knew about it, but to hear it from the wrestlers too was pretty cool. I mean, they were talking about they love a villain in Philly. They will boo you. That was the first town ever that booed the Rock and Roll Express against the Midnight Express. So Bully told stories, Tommy told stories, Mark Henry told stories about wrestling in Philadelphia. Dave did a whole promo segment pretty much about, he did not care for The Rock going into WrestleMania. Now, I don't know how much of that Dave was kind of acting a little bit or how much it truly did bother him. I think it bothered him a lot because he's such a Cody guy and he hated that some pretty much, I can't call a Rock an outsider, but someone who really hadn't been around the company in forever just walks in and takes the spot that Cody deserved. So he cut a funny segment about that. So after that was over, Ray and I had a few drinks there. After that was over, we went to a place called McCluskers. That's in South Philly, right in the heart of South Philly. True Philly pub. I mean, the place was, the size of an apartment, maybe a little bigger than that. Blue Meanie, who wrestled in ECW, was hosting an event called Meanie Mania, which was awesome. The pub was awesome. Just being in a true Philly sports bar, because I love sports bars, and this is one of those. I guess you can call it a townies place where locals go to, and everyone knows each other there. I'm not trying to steal a Cheers line, but that was awesome. Meanie came over, said hi to us, chatted with us, and just talked about thanking us for coming, which was our pleasure. We had a few drinks there, but talk about food because I was starting to get really hungry. Meanie announces, "Hey, I have food for everybody." He had a bunch of cheesesteaks from Pat's. He had tomato pies, which was the first time I ever tried one. I know it sounds like, oh, I know what that is, but no, in Philly they do it a little different with the crust and just the tomatoes. It was awesome. So I had a bunch of those, and they also had pretzels from Philadelphia, which they're known for. So I was full then, which was great. So I met Ray's friend Craig there, who it turned out we saw later in the weekend, and my friend Colin's friend Craig. Craig is just an awesome dude, loves wrestling, good person. We were joking around with him for a while till we called it a night. Colin came and picked us up. Ray and I, we didn't want to completely admit it, but we were done at 8:30, 9 o'clock. We knew it was going later. It was time. He had been up early that day, getting to Colin's house, getting it ready. I had been up early in my whole day of travel. Like I was ready to go back. So we go back to Colin's house. We watched a little bit of the Heat 76ers. I don't remember anything after that. I passed out. Probably the earliest I've been asleep in over a year. Wake up the next day, day two. We go to WrestleCon. I had a fun time there. That wasn't really for them, but I had an encyclopedia that I wanted to get a few people to sign. So I walked around, met Sergeant Slaughter for the first time, saw Matt Cardona, chatted with him for a minute. I didn't get to say hi to Matt Hardy because he was with Jeff and all the family, and that line was really long. So I wasn't going to A, interrupt the line, and B, I wasn't going to wait in the line that long just to say hi because that's not fair to him. So I ended up getting the chat with Ron Simmons, my fellow Seminole, and he was asking me about the quarterback situation. So I told him about that, which was just, you're talking to a Florida State legend and pro wrestling legend about Florida State football. I'm in heaven. I had a great chat with Teddy Long, believe it or not. He remembered me. He made a joke when I didn't even see him. And I ended up laughing, and he gave me his phone number and said, "Hey, if there's any shows in South Florida, I'm happy to come back down." So, which was really cool of him. So we left WrestleCon. We went over to the WWE Superstore where they had all their merch, and it was impressive. That store was huge. We never made it to WWE World, which was right next door, the interactive event. Just didn't fit into our schedule. So a lot of this stuff I really liked. They didn't have my size. I guess a lot of people snatched it up the first Thursday it was open and the Friday morning. So that's okay. Less stuff for me to spend money on, which is never a bad thing. So I got like one thing there. We end up leaving. We went to Reading Terminal for lunch. Now, let me tell you about Reading Terminal if you've never been there or heard about it. It is a place right. It was right across the street. I kid you not, probably over 100, 200 places to eat in a like a food court area. I mean, each place has their own little area, and so I'm walking around. I was just craving a cheesesteak, craving a cheesesteak. I knew there was a place there called Denix that's famous for their roast pork. I've had it before, but I just was craving a cheesesteak. But after walking around and walking around and walking around, and all the tourists were racing to the cheesesteak places there, especially a lot of tourists in town for WrestleMania. So I finally just gave up. I'm so hungry at the time. So I go back to Denix, but this time I got the Italian style pulled pork. Wow, was that good? That was 10 out of 10. I know it's a high score, it's a crazy score. It was well deserved. It was so good. And I had it with the broccoli rabe on it. Oh, was it awesome? So after that, we headed back to the house. All of us power napped, and then we went to the ECW arena for the ECW tribute show, which was awesome. We hung out in the parking lot before the show, went inside for a little, then we decided to go back outside. And I followed Ray. Ray and Colin had went out back to the car. I said, I'll meet you there. I had to go to the bathroom or something. So I meet them there, and they're talking to these four guys. I assumed they knew them or something because Ray and Colin are from there. Turns out those four guys were from England in town for WrestleMania. And not surprising, WrestleMania weekend, people literally from all over the world make the trek to WrestleMania. So these four guys weren't just cool people, decent, like they were awesome people, capital A. We had a blast with them. They were just appreciative. Some Americans were being so hospitable to them, and Ray and Colin gave them a bunch of beers, and they were awesome. We had a blast. Everybody kept like looking at us in line to go back into the ECW TV show. Like, man, that's where the party is. These four guys were awesome. We exchanged contact information, and we said, let's try and meet up before the shows. You are welcome to tailgate with us. Please come back. And they couldn't have been cooler. So we go to the ECW tribute show. The Dudley Boys were in the first match against Tommy Dreamer. And why can't I remember? Oh, Onita, Japanese wrestler. We figured they were in the first match because they had to get to the Hall of Fame where Paul Heyman was getting inducted. Turns out we were right. So they did a cool match there. Bully cut a great promo. Tommy cut some great promos. It was just cool to be in the ECW arena for ECW theme show. Yeah, these guys are getting older, and it was tough to watch some of them work, but they were great, and you were there for the nostalgia of it. You weren't there for, in-ring excellence. So we hung out there for a while. The Brits hung out with us in there too. They later on in the night they pulled out some Stone Cold beers at the bar at the ECW arena, so we had a couple there, and then we called it a night. Went back to Colin's house. Don't think we were up late there either. It was one of those days. So next morning we get up. Colin had to do some things, and we made plans to meet up with him later, obviously, for WrestleMania Night 1. Ray and I decided, let's just get out. We went to a place called Nick and Tom's. Tom and Nick and Tom's, Nick and Tony's. Anyway, it was a cheesesteak place. And because we were going back to the ECW arena for Busted Open show again. It was going to be a different theme. They were, had some guests that they didn't have the time before. So we go to the cheesesteak place, and it was awesome. Like, that was a great cheesesteak place. When you watch my vlog of day 3, you'll see the cheesesteak from there. So we go to that, and we had a decent time there. It was hot in there, believe it or not, in that area. A lot of fans were coming there, to hang out before night 1. So we finally decided, like, we're taking an Uber to the show because we were meeting Colin there. We know the later it was going to get, the more the rates were going to go up and the less drivers there were going to be. So we made an executive decision. Let's just get out of here. We're not missing anything. So we got in an Uber, got to the stadium. We ended up going to Xfinity Live, which was slammed. I mean, so many people, to be expected. But after a while, it got hot. So we finally got out. And then Colin showed up. We hung out with him for a bit, obviously. Go into the stadium for night 1. We enjoyed the show. It was cold. I didn't have a problem with it. Obviously, my friends didn't either. It was about the last 30, 40 minutes of the show where the wind picked up a little bit, and you were like, okay, this is cold. But I complain about South Florida heat all the time. So I'm not going to complain about the cold there. That's just, I wasn't going to do it. And it was fine. It wasn't that, it was cold, but not like insane. But the wind every now and then, because we were in the upper deck, so the wind hit you a little harder there than if you're in the lower level. So we enjoyed the first show night. It was good. The Rhea Ripley match was good. The tag team ladder match was good. The Sami Zayn and Gunther was great. We all agreed the worst match of the night, in our opinion, was Jimmy and versus Jey Uso. We just, for whatever reason, it was slow. It didn't develop, and I don't know if weather affected any of the matches. I really don't, and the rest of us won't tell you that. It could have been. It's just it didn't really live up to what we thought it was going to be. And they did okay entrances the first night, not your typical WrestleMania stuff. And we wondered if that had to do with the wind a little bit. So we go back to Colin's house after night one. We had to deal with the traffic leaving. It was what it was. We finally got home, I think around 12:30, 1 o'clock. We all said, we were talking about hanging out for a little. And we all, the second we got back to Colin's house, said, okay, good night. And we were all asleep in about 5 minutes. So we get up the next day for day two, and we're like, all right, we're still pumped. We're still loving this. You just had a vibe that day that, man, night one was fun, but night two is going to be special. And that's what happened. So Ray had a good idea and said, let's get to the stadium around 1:30, 2 o'clock. We're going to be tailgating anyway. They knew of some other tailgates from a group called the Drunk Phillies fans that were great. And the weather, when we woke up that morning, was just picturesque. 60s. I mean, it was just it was perfect. You could not have asked for better weather. I've never been to a tailgate where I didn't one time think about the weather and it being hot like that, like I'm used to. It was awesome. I walked around. I got some content of Philadelphia Eagles bus that you'll see in one of my vlogs. And we just hung out. Ray's friend and Colin's friend Craig came, and we just hung out with Craig and talked to him. And then a bunch of other people they were friends with showed up. And it was just awesome. It was one of those things that, man, we were just in the moment having fun. And normally I'm the type to check my watch a little bit and be like, all right, it's time to go to the show. I was starting to forget about Mania. That's how much fun it was. And then they said, okay, we're going over to our Drunk Phil's fans tailgate, which was like on the other side of the parking lot, not far at all. We go there, and the Drunk Phil's fans gave me a tour of their bus, not like a Cody Rhodes bus or Roman Reigns bus, but it was like a school bus that they designed for tailgating, which was awesome. Had a bar in there, video games. It was awesome. So I go in there, and they said, oh, you know these people, here's some Jello shots. There's pizza being made for you, and help yourself to beers or whatever. I mean, they were that nice. So we're there, and then we ran into the Brits. We didn't see them the day before, but they were there. They happened to be one over and messaged they messaged one of us. I can't remember. They came over, hung out with us for a few hours there. It was just special. We had the best time, and I'm like, oh man, we got to get tonight too. It was Ray that said, yeah, we got to get to the stadium. So we left, and we kept joking, man. Night two can't top this tailgate. Okay, tailgate was awesome, but I was wrong. Night two might have been one of the best nights of WrestleMania ever. And to say that, and all the years that WrestleMania's been on, and all the WrestleMania moments that have taken place, to say that. And I understand, people might say, well, you were there, so it adds to it, and it's a little different at home. And I get that. So I'm just saying it from my personal experience. It was awesome. I mean, first match, Seth Rollins' entrance with a group that Ray had told me about. I didn't know because I'm not a Philly local. There's a group. They do a parade in Philadelphia called the Mummers, and they dress in this fancy, exotic stuff. And Seth Rollins, perfect for him, came out with them and did a whole dance down the stage. It was awesome, and the Philly people just loved it because it's a big deal there. So I give WWE credit for really, really just ingratiating themselves with the Philly culture as well, not just wrestling fans in general, which was awesome. So that match ends. McIntyre wins. Everyone thinks, all right, Drew had his WrestleMania moment. He ends up upsetting CM Punk, who was doing commentary. Punk ends up beating him up. Next thing you know, we get to see a cash in. You don't see that every day. Damian Priest comes in, cashes in, new champ, place goes nuts. And we're all saying, if this is how the show's starting, wow. And I don't think, if I had to think, there wasn't a bad match that night at all. The Bailey match was a little slow, but she got it done, and it was good. I give her credit. Io Sky did a good job in that match too. I'm trying to. No, there wasn't a bad match. And then Cody Roman obviously was epic. Just back and forth, and then the surprises of obviously Roman had his Bloodlines crew show up, Jimmy, and then Solo, and we thought, all right, Jay might help Cody, obviously Seth Rollins might help. We were wondering if anybody else would help out, and sure enough, John Cena comes out to help Cody. Place goes ballistic. The Rock came in after him, takes out Cena. Next thing we know, we're like, okay, here we go. But before we know it, the gong goes off and the freaking Undertaker comes out. Place goes insane. Taker gives the Rock bottom, the choke slam to Rock. Incredible. Cody ends up in the middle of the ring, beating Roman, who hasn't lost in 4 years. I mean, it was one of those special moments, and watching all the wrestlers come out and celebrate with Cody, and the fans were like cheering and high-fiving and hugging. I hadn't seen that before ever at a wrestling show because it was just such a special moment. One of the most special moments in wrestling history, if you really want to get descriptive about it. So, unbelievable show. We go back to the car and we look and say, if we book it now, we're not going to have traffic. And sure enough, we were out of there. No time. We go back to the house, stayed up for a little bit, watched a little bit of what we saw there, passed out, went to bed. And then, so that was it for the WrestleMania part. The next day, I was in town for the day, so I decided I really wanted to go to Raw since I was there. Ray and Colin weren't interested in that. That's fine. So I figured out what I would be spending on Ubers to go from Colin's house to the stadium and back. It was pretty much the same as a nice casino hotel that was a 5-minute walk to Wells Fargo. And since they weren't going, I didn't want them to wait up for me, Ray went back to his house. Colin, I didn't want to bother them. They'd done enough for me. So I go check into the hotel on Monday, and who do I run into while I'm waiting for my room? Other than Philly legend Allen Iverson. We took a picture and everything, and then we ended up talking wrestling for 15 minutes, which was awesome. And I talk about it in my vlog. It was awesome meeting AI. He was a really cool dude. I just didn't think that would happen on the trip, but you never know what can happen on a WrestleMania weekend. So I finally get my room. I passed out for a couple hours. Went down, walked around the casino a little bit, didn't gamble. And went to Monday Night Raw. I enjoyed it. Wasn't like the most incredible Raw ever. I mean, got the job done. It was cool to see The Rock show up. I wasn't sure if he'd be there or not. I was in town, so I went, but I do think a little bit of the luster of the Raw after Mania has been lost. I mean, there were some such epic Raws, and they really haven't done that since. So until I see another one of those again, I'm going to assume it's for the most part like a typical Raw. But who knows with this new group how they're going to treat those Raws. So down the line, I mean. So that was it for the day 4. Yeah, day 5 in Philly. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wow. So that was it for Philly. Next morning, I got up and I figured out that I had a flight out of Newark at 7. And so I had to take the train there. Well, obviously, right past Newark is New York Penn Station. I have family there. So I was able to go to New York City, walk around Times Square for a little bit, and I filmed it, and you'll see it in a vlog. And then I got to see my cousin, who I rarely ever get to see, have lunch with her, catch up. It was awesome. So then I go to the Penn Station and realize, okay, I'm jumping on the New Jersey Transit to Newark Airport. There's this 5:30 flight that I can make. And I made the 5:30 flight. We left a little bit late, about 6. It was all right. But I got home safe travel, unbelievable trip. I'm not tired from it, like where I came back from the Jericho cruise and I was like this. Uh, I'm just on a high from it still. It was that much fun. I mean, WWE did their part, they delivered, but uh, I joked last night in the airport on my vlog that I said, the trip may be over, but the memories will last forever. And I think I want to make a T-shirt of that. That's just something that's really true to me, because we're always going to have that trip to talk about, and we're always going to rehash it. And it was that much fun. So thank you to those of you listening to me. I got more vlogs from the trip coming out. I put out day 1 today. Thank you for your time. Hope all is well. Have a good night or a good morning or a good afternoon. Take care, and I'll talk to you later.